Ford is facing serious challenges globally and especially in Europe at this moment. Even massive job cuts are out there. But there's one vehicle that's trying to save the brand, and that is the very popular Ford Puma. And that's also the reason why they bring this one here now as an electric version, the Ford Puma Gen E. It is so popular, it's the most popular Ford model in Europe, the normal Puma with the ICE, with the internal combustion engine. It will be sold, yes, still, and now parallel on the same platform with the electric drivetrain. And we're going to find out, does that work? And there will be a lot of interesting things coming up in the interior, including the so-called Gigabox. Everything of that now with Thomas, an Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the closed front grille in here, huge Ford badge. And they really kept the design except for the closed front grille. This color here is called electric yellow, so they also go with screaming out colors. Of course, others are also available. Optional matrix LED, the front headlamps, and with a distinctive signature. And I would even maybe call it here some Puma claws, maybe. What do you think? Then the length is 4.21 meters or 166 inches. So still a very small vehicle. It could also be compared to the Renault 5 or the Renault 4, for example, also now in the electric version, or maybe to a mini EV. Wheels 17 or 19 inch. These are the biggest ones. The 19 inch still with somewhat aerodynamic design, but really large, of course, for such a small vehicle. And the design is also one of the main reasons why people go for it, because it's just a very likable one. You maybe remember the Ford Puma originally was like a small sports vehicle, and then it came more in this crossover SUV style, and it's still working very well in the sales numbers. It has like this, very round and likable effect still also at the rear, here with the modern tail lamp signature, and the electric version exclusively gets the Puma lettering in white. And I think why not? Fits to the vehicle. Yeah, maybe we can argue if the yellow color is the one you want to keep as a daily driver, but there are also, for example, nice Thomas blue colors available here for the Puma. Then, no fake exhaust because we don't need one. So overall, a very clean design and still a design that is attracting a lot of customers. Then about all the EV facts. So it's a front-wheel driven vehicle. Top speed is 160 kilometers an hour or 100 miles per hour. So it's not meant to be driven like really, really high speed on the German Autobahn. And the acceleration figure is at 8 seconds. Then the battery pack here, it's of course not supposed to be like a long-term EV. 43 kilowatt hours net is the usable battery size. And that means, let's say like a very conservative, if you also have some motorway in the mix, maybe like 300 kilometers, 190 miles, and it could be more if you go only for a city use. I always tend to give like conservative figures or estimations. If we can drive that one here, then very soon we can also tell you more about the concise consumption. We had it with other small vehicles before, that when you are really focusing on the city EV driving, then you can also score even better range figures. Recharging, AC or DC. DC peak is actually at 100 kilowatt, so we can go from 10 to 80% state of charge in 23 minutes here for the Puma. It's relatively fast because the battery is not that large, of course, then in this case. Let's check out if the small fellow here has a frunk or not. I mean, there's not much space available though, so there we are. And let's check it out. Oh, there's something. Look at that. Interesting. And it gets even more interesting. So first of all, you can have the cable stored here. Then you can also have an inlet for like some equipment. And look at that. This is the towing hook. And there is one actually, and also a clever storage there in the front. Maybe also for the weight balance, because it's really heavy, of course, needs to be. And it actually can tow 750 kilograms. So maybe it's used more than for a bicycle carrier or something like that in the rear, because if you tow something like seriously with this kind of small battery, range probably won't be that good, but at least you have the flexibility. And let's check out the turning indicators here in the front. The Puma claws are being illuminated then. And in the rear, kind of tiny definitely, so that could be more visible. By the way, here I can show it in the palm of my hand. Oh, a Puma paddle light. So and when it would be dark, it would be on the ground then, but here I can see it better in my hand to have the whole Puma in my hands. 구독, 좋아요, 알림 설정 부탁해요. This is a simple key fob, nothing special. Then door closing sound with really solid door handles. Yeah, solid sound. Yeah, so I really like the door closing sound. And then, yeah, you already hear these famous Ford chimes when the door is opening. And then here you have a two-tone scheme actually, exclusively for the EV version. Here all hardback, but then here you have a soft touch leatherette, so that looks cool, feels nice. Door pockets, however, all hardback. Then you have a very nice Puma entry badge. Oh, look at that cute fellow. And steering wheel with a modern style with a flat bottom. Also pretty high, actually. Real buttons at the steering wheel we have as well. Soon more to the instruments and so on. You can already see large digital instruments. And then the seats, either fabric as base or then here in the premium trim, optional microfiber on the inside and the Sensico leatherette on the outside. Also, once again, in the two-tone scheme. So that looks actually quite nice. And the whole car is animal-free material-wise in all trims. So that's really good. Then here, manual control for that seat. And it's actually quite cozy. It looks also nice. It's okay for tall drivers as well, at least from the seating position. For the height here, it does exactly work with 189 or 6'2". Not much left, but it does work. And there's also a manual shade here for this panoramic roof. You could also get that. It's not standard, so that's easy. And this one is actually one you can still open. And that is also not that rare for electric vehicles. So there, in that case, yeah, it's kind of loud, right? So in that case here, this vehicle profits from this ICE platform that it also gets that. Steering wheel, manual, up and down, in and out, so you can find a good driving position. And the one peculiar thing you already find right here is that you have a sound bar here in the top front. That's interesting, isn't it? And the cockpit overview, once again with this two-tone scheme here with the leatherette. Top part here is hardback though, and then you have a 12-inch touchscreen here now, so relatively large here for a small vehicle. Still a manual volume jog here in the lower part, but everything else is then touch. Here, for example, also the temperature, you can do it like that, or also move it here inside. So at least you have these two possibilities. Zoom more to the infotainment system. Lower part here, this is an inductive charging pad. You could also pull out this whole thing here and then like for cleaning or so. Ladies and gentlemen, a rubber pad. And then you can see here's the inductive charging pad underneath, just the left side. And yeah, it's obviously also not ventilated. Then you have cup holes that are also adaptive. A lot of high gloss black UTC here, easily collect scratches and fingerprints, so that could be better. And then here the armrest is soft enough. Here from the build quality could be more fixed. Then more space underneath, like here and here as well. And then, well, the glove box, I mean, this is like one of the very first vehicle that is built, so I expect this to change, because we have a funny thing here. This one falls down, but then when I move it up, it's soft. So I feel that this is a hand-built vehicle and they just switch it up, in reverse. So it should be dampened down and easy to pull it up. But I'm really excited when we drive this car and in the final customer version if this one will be fixed. So very often we have these vehicles that are really like the very, very first vehicles are being built. And sometimes things are fixed and sometimes not. So it's always interesting to watch the follow-up review done, which usually comes like a couple of months later after the initial world premiere. So from the user interface, you still have some manual stuff like on the steering wheel, and also here the switch gear here, just like down and reversed. So it's easy to switch the gears then in that respect. Then the driver POV here, once again with the real buttons, also for the cruise control, for example. Then these digital instruments, 12.8 inch, really large, show also the battery status and of course in the speed when we drive it. And then the sound bar on top of that. Main infotainment unit, showed you the climate unit. This is here, for example, also when you press in the lower part, there you can at least switch through the driving modes. So that's possible. However, you have to press it once, then you have to confirm it in the screen. Yeah, greetings from BMW, I would say. So making it a little bit more complicated here in the sports mode than for the best performance. Other than that, you always have this home screen menu right there. And then you also have the car internal GPS. And in the car internal GPS, for example, you can also have the calculation of the charging stops. For example, if we put in now like Berlin, which is Berlin. And it is actually quite far away from Cologne, where this studio here is. And then if we click that one, then it shows that it does the calculation of the charging stops. And now we can see that it does 2 charging stops here calculated from Cologne to Berlin. And here in the lower part, more space underneath the console. And then is here also the cable connection, USB-C and USB-A. And here, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto connection, wireless or wired, both is possible. And you can see you can also go for that one full screen. You can also have this widget here on the side, but full screen is actually cooler, isn't it? Then the rear doors here, all hard packed plastic. There's nothing nice to see here, honestly. Then the rear seats, ISOFIX at the outside each. And here in this premium trim, we also once again have the nice microfiber and the leather red then in the middle part. There is also a middle seat, but the problem is that, yeah, as a tall L, it's nothing for that, because here, like, look at the legroom when the tall driver is driving. Headroom, yeah, would theoretically still work somewhat, but only if I put my head in the panoramic roof. So yeah, it's a short vehicle, just that you get an impression that it's really nothing for adults here in the rear. It's interesting that here, even the back part of this optional panoramic roof, this one can also be separately covered. So that is actually a nice solution, that you can also control it as a rear passenger yourself in a way. Also here some hangers for like maybe like a coat or something. And in the middle part, you also have 2 USB-C chargers. So when checking the trunk or the boot, since when don't I have a ruler in my hand, but like here, some water, you're going to find out very soon. And maybe you already know if you've seen the combustion engine review of the Puma here. So first of all, there's an electric hatch available. Look at that. Nice. And this cover here is basically inbuilt on the top part. You could also remove that. And here the cabin trolley also fits in a vertical way. You have a meter or 40 inches in the width. And the length here is 75 centimeters or 30 inches. And the total height is 67 centimeters or 26 inches. The seats can be folded like this, also from here. It's an easy solution actually. There we go. And then we have the full length of, there we go, 145 centimeters or 57 inches. So first of all, you can move it in a lower position like this. Then you have more height than actually the height here to the top. This is like enormous. Look at that. This is then 84 centimeters or 33 inches. So that is actually possible. And again, you can have like this lower loading sill, put it there, or you put it in this position here. Then you can access this Giga box. Then of course you have even more trunk height. And you can also remove this rubber lip. And then we have this one here, this sinkhole, so to speak. You can unscrew it like this, and then actually water can just rinse through. Yeah, and then, for example, you can have one zip for you and one zip for the car. Yeah, and you might think about, yeah, what's the real usage of that one? For example, you could go on a trip with some friends and you just put a lot of ice there and put the cold drinks and the water just slips out of the bottom. That would be one use case. Or when you think about like water sports, stand-up paddling, whatever, and you have like, you know, maybe like a wet neoprene suit or something like that. You just put all the wet stuff back in there, unscrew the stuff, and while driving it just, you know, slips out through the floor or something like that. And of course you can put really dirty stuff in there from, you know, I don't know, a mud race. I know, yeah, not that dirty stuff. And then you can just clean it. Actually, you can clean it with water here, all the dirty stuff, and then it also rinses through the bottom. So
the question is, do I fit in?
Does Leah fit in there? Really? You want to try that?
100 kilograms.
That fits easy. Yay! So Leah fits in the Gigabox. Is it cozy?
Yeah.
And about the price, very interesting. Here at the day of the shooting, I don't know it yet, so I can't comment on it, but we received the information then later afterwards for you, so I can put the price here in the insert, and then it's up to you to comment on the price. Really looking forward to that. However, what is Ford stressing is that they don't want to put like a very discounted list price. They rather want to put discounts on the leasing rate, which is also in a way clever because they don't want like depreciation of the vehicles and so on, rather put the discounts on the lease. And also electric vehicles in Europe, especially in Germany, are usually leased only so far because people don't want to take the risk of the battery depreciation. And we have also seen the loss in value for electric vehicles is very high so far. So then a leasing could in most cases be the more clever choice. Yeah, with Tesla it's often different because they offer very bad leasing rates, but good entry prices, so people rather tend to buy the Teslas. Yeah, but then again, you can get a surprise when they suddenly discount the vehicle for 5,000 euros less or something, then the used car prices go down again. So it's always a bargain then, of course, because technology is evolving and evolving, especially with electric vehicles, and then maybe the one you bought 3 years before is maybe just, like maybe less than half the value and so on. So very interesting how it goes with the Ford Puma Gen E.